Hello, everyone. Welcome back in our weekly session with Britain Today. Today we have a new guest. He is Steve Hidley. Mr. Steve Hidley is an activist. He is an academic. He's been supporting Palestine since the supporting Palestine loudly. He's been speaking about it, trying to defend it, and trying to, you know, support as much as he can, but unfortunately he's been facing an unfortunate event throughout his supporting. Good afternoon, Mr. Steve. How are you today?
Hi, please just call me Steve. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me onto your program.
You're welcome. Can you please introduce yourself to our Arab audience?
Okay, so my name is Steve Hidley. I'm the former Assistant General Secretary of the RMT Union, which is a transport union here in Britain. I'm currently the chair of Newham Trades Council, which is a local TUC here down in the borough of Newham. And I'm an activist around Palestine. I'm a lifelong socialist, and the Palestinian issue, in particular, the issue at Gaza just now, is absolutely horrendous and something that all decent people are campaigning on in Britain.
Thank you very much. So, Steve, we all know that all over the years, the past 75 years, the Palestinian issue was misrepresented, especially in the Western media. When and how did you start understanding the reality of what's actually going on there, and what made you, change your mind? At what point you changed your mind and starting your support to Palestine?
Well, to be honest, I thought I was supporting Palestine from my youth because I lived in occupied Ireland, in the northern 6 counties of Ireland that are still occupied by Britain. And we had links with the Palestinian organizations like, I think it was the PLO back in that time. And there were speakers come over from the PLO to Ireland. Yeah. And I thought I was supporting Palestine because I was looking for Palestinian freedom. But I did so in the context of a two-state solution. And I just unconsciously, I suppose, because we were indoctrinated in the West, that even the liberals and the so-called peacemakers in the West were asking for a two-state solution. And it's only really since this incident in Gaza happened, this genocide in Gaza happened, that I looked into it properly and I understood what happened in the Nakba. It started in 1947, escalated in 1948 when most people were actually driven off their land. Then 1967 when there was another land grab. And then the Oslo Accords, how they've been torn up ever since by the Israelis ever encroaching on Palestinian lands. With that absolutely deliberate and planned settlements drive, where they're not only maintaining the illegal settlements, but they're building new ones all the time, and it's a deliberate policy. So that was, I suppose you could say, I only really came to fully support the Palestinians after Israel's attempted genocide in Gaza, because I now think a two-state solution is absolutely impossible, because I don't think the Zionist state has got any intentions of allowing a two-state solution. And I think Netanyahu, you can say what you like about Netanyahu, at least he's been honest. The rest of them have been pretending that this is a case that they're going to create some sort of viable Palestinian state, and they're not. They're not. So the only way forward now, I think, that they recognize is a secular, non-denominational Palestinian state that encompasses the whole area.
As you've said, since the 7th of October, yourself and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of thousands, have reached understanding now of what actually happening there. Why, though, we're still seeing in the Western media the bias that we've been seeing? And do you think this bias will threat the freedom of speech? We're in the UK, we're in 2024. We know it's a democratic country. It's a country that allow you to speak loud of your thoughts, your opinions. But what we're seeing now in these days, it's opposite of all this. What do you think about that?
Well, there are a number of points there. First of all, the British press has been controlled by the British ruling class, and indeed Murdoch. You've got billionaires running the press in Britain. Now, to understand why there's so much support for Israel, you have to understand Israel's role. Israel is the Ulster in the Middle East. Israel is the place where Western imperialism control the supplies of oil and gas and other resources in the Middle East. It's there to keep the Arab countries in check. If the Arab countries don't play ball with the West, Israel attacks them. So that's the reason why Israel is getting the support of the Western media.
Sure.
As for Britain being a democracy, Britain's not a democracy. It's a constitutional monarchy. 2/3 of the British Parliament aren't elected. The monarch is not elected. He is part of Parliament, or she is part of Parliament. That's in a hereditary position. The House of Lords are not elected. They're either appointed or they're hereditary, still got some hereditary peers. And the only part of the Parliament that's elected in Britain is the House of Commons. So when we talk about Britain being a democracy, it's not a democracy. And freedom of speech, well, you're free to stand down in Hyde Park corner on a box and shout whatever you like to a few people who think you're deranged. That's the sort of freedom of speech you've got here. Because if you get an audience, then you're going to be attacked. You're going to be vilified. You're probably going to be shut down. Now, I don't agree with everything RT said, the Russian television channel. But they did give a different perspective, and they did a lot of work around different countries, showing different perspectives. I didn't agree with all of it, but suddenly RT gave a different perspective on the war in Ukraine and Russia, and they shut down RT. So you're allowed to have freedom of speech as long as it's within certain boundaries. And what this country is very clever at doing, they will allow vigorous debate within those boundaries. But as soon as you step out with those boundaries, outside those boundaries, then they will shut you down. And that's always been the case.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah. You said before that you've been expressing your support to Ukraine before, and you haven't faced any problem with that. However, you went to work, to school, wearing your Palestinian scarf, and refused to take it off when you were asked to. And unfortunately, you were sacked from your job because of this. Can you tell me what happened?
Well, first of all, I didn't support the Ukraine. I support peace between the Russian workers and the Ukrainian workers, which is a very different thing. I don't support either the oligarchs in the Ukraine or the oligarchs in Russia. I don't support either of them. But what happened at that school was that people were wearing Ukrainian badges. There were Ukrainian flags up on the wall. They were even doing collections for the Ukraine. They were having teachers explain the situation in the Ukraine to the children. Well, they're not children, they're actually young adults between 16 and 18 years of age. And all this was going on. But as soon as I was there 3.5 weeks. I was wearing the badge the whole time. I believe it was another member of staff who made a complaint about the badge. It was a little badge in the shape of Ireland with the Palestinian colours on it. So I was given the choice, either take a badge off or go home. They were going to send me home. So I said, okay, then I'm not prepared to take the badge off. I told them it was a humanitarian gesture. I wasn't favoring anyone. I just wanted peace there. I wanted the genocide to stop. And it was a humanitarian gesture that I was wearing the badge for. But they still insisted on sending me home and terminated my employment. So there's clear double standards. By the way, I just come back from Derry in Ireland, where I'm from, where 14 civilians were massacred by the British Army in 1972. I'd come back from the commemoration of that event, of that massacre, and people, the guy who actually sent me home was wearing a poppy, which is commemorating the British Army who carried out that massacre in my hometown. So he was allowed to visibly display, lionizing and making heroes of the people who carried out a massacre in my hometown. That was completely acceptable. The flags of the Ukraine were completely acceptable. But calling for peace in Palestine by wearing a small badge in Palestinian colours somehow wasn't acceptable.
Yeah, that's the double standard that I've been seeing since the 7th of October till today. That's clearly, even on a smaller institution like a school, you still can see this. Now, you have faced different events that's for the same reason. Also, you were invited for a Talk TV to be interviewed. tell us what happened there.
Well, I was originally asked to come on and speak about a book I'd written called Dairy Boy, and I came on, and the conversation it's about 10 minutes into the conversation, and I was wearing a Palestinian scarf, which the presenter tried to say was an ISIS scarf, and I said, "What are you talking about? It's a Palestinian scarf." And then he just went, I think, a bit mad and started making all sorts of allegations. He denied that the Nakba took place. They denied that the Palestinians were in any way kind of being treated badly by Israel. He referred to the fact that his friend was Jewish, which I don't see what that had anything to do with the debate, because as I pointed out to him, well, you're not Jewish and you're a Zionist, so it's not about being Jewish, it's about being a Zionist.
Exactly, yeah.
I think the thing that really upset them was I just simply pointed out that an occupied people have got the right to resist and a right to defend themselves. We hear so often from the mainstream media about Israel's right to defend itself. It doesn't have a right to defend itself. It's an occupying power. It doesn't have rights. It has responsibilities to the people who it's occupying. And those responsibilities are clearly not being carried out. In fact, quite the contrary. They are starving the civilian population. We have now got children dying of starvation in Gaza. We have lack of food. We've got lack of medicine. We've got lack of water. All these things are collective punishments. They're clearly war crimes. We've now got 30,000 people dead. Let's say, for example, 2,000 of those are Hamas. I imagine, yeah, some of them are Hamas. 2,000 maybe Hamas, maybe 3,000 tops. That leaves 27,000 dead civilians. Now, 2/3 of them are women and children, right? So, true. If you look at the death toll in Russia and Ukraine, hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been killed, but on both sides, the total of Russian and Ukrainian civilians that have been killed is 10,000, and that's in 2 years. Okay, that's in 2 years. Now Putin's been vilified. I'm no fan of Putin, by the way, but Putin's been dragged before the international courts. Russians have had sanctions put on them by almost every country in the world.
Absolutely.
And that's 10,000 people dead, 10,000 civilians.
Yeah.
We have nearly three times that number dead in a few months.
Within 5 months, 5 months.
And, you know, if it carries on like this, who knows how many people, and then put on top of that, over the 100,000 people that have been injured. Some of them have got life-changing injuries. They've lost limbs. You can see the children on the TV who have lost limbs, who've been operated on in a lot of cases without anesthetic. And the double standards, the people that get up and preach about humanitarian law and international law are the very people who are breaking it, and they just can't be taken seriously anymore. They really can't be taken seriously. Britain, the United States, Germany, some of the other European countries cannot be taken seriously when they talk about the rule of law and they talk about humanitarianism.
Let's talk about now the mix we've been seeing the mix with supporting Palestine and being a terrorist. As you just said, you're wearing the scarf. They said that you were ISIS. So, is this attempt to scare people from supporting Palestine?
Yeah, well, I don't think that the British state were really expecting the reaction that they got. There have been 500,000 people on the streets regularly every second Saturday in Britain, and the Labour Party, which has been absolutely disgraceful, just as bad as the government actually, have completely capitulated to America and to Zionism, and are refusing to have refused up until this point to call for a ceasefire. I believe they're calling for a humanitarian ceasefire. I don't know what that means, but even that's got preconditions that the oppressed stop resisting their oppression in order for that ceasefire to come about. So they weren't expecting the masses of people on the street and the political pressure that's created. So the tactic has been to try to demonize the demonstrators, and these demonstrations, you can see them for yourself. They've got families on them, they've got children on them. You
very
get
peaceful.
Very, very, very peaceful indeed. You get a few people as you would at any football match or any big event, who clash with the police. They haven't been serious clashes. They haven't been clashes where there have been any major injuries. And those tiny few clashes have been taken out, and they've been blown out of all context. And it's an attempt to say that, well, these people are supporting terrorism or they're all extremists. And we've even had quite some senior figures in the Conservative Party. Suella Braverman, thank God she's been removed from her job, but she was deliberately trying to brand not just the demonstrators, but I think the entire Muslim community as terrorist supporters. We now have an MP who's been suspended by the Conservative Party, but had said that the London had fallen into the hands of Islamic extremists.
Wow.
And, you could say what you like about Sadiq Khan, but I don't like Sadiq Khan. I think he's a right flunky. He's not a friendly working people whatsoever, but he's certainly not an Islamic extremist.
Absolutely not.
And you get these kind of wild accusations from people, and the whole purpose of this is to try and portray the demonstrators not as peaceful protesters, which they are, but as these these dupes or these Islamic extremists who are on the streets and trying to take over London, and that's the whole strategy. And it's not working. Most people can see it for what it is. It's just not working.
I have a question about your personal opinion. So you've mentioned what's going on. We know it, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people know that's what's going on. Everyone can see the disaster. It's an international disaster. What's happening? But unfortunately, the governments of the UK still can't see it. They even saying they don't have a reason to ask for a humanitarian ceasefire. How can they justify that? Like, it's just a joke. Like, I can't see any reason for what they're doing. Like, what else does it need to happen for them to actually take an action?
Well, see, it's not in their strategic interests to go against Israel. I mean, they need Israel there. They need Israel there, as we said at the start of the program, to make sure that the Arab states stay in line, that they don't get fair prices for their oil and gas and other natural resources. They need Israel there, so they will support Israel to the hilt. I mean, I think that when we talk about Britain supporting Israel, Britain doesn't support Israel. Britain doesn't support Israel. The people of Britain, over 70% of the people of Britain want an immediate ceasefire, an unconditional ceasefire. So the politicians are completely divorced from what the people want. But the politicians in this country have always, just from the Second World War, they've always been on the coattails of the Americans. Whatever the Americans do, that's British foreign policy. Britain doesn't have an independent foreign policy. And Britain, in a way, it does benefit from having Israel there in the Middle East and, as a threat to the Arab powers. But the real power that benefits from that now is America. So Britain won't defend its ally America. Britain doesn't care. It never has cared about human rights or freedom of speech or anything like that. Britain colonized the world. It plundered, raped, and murdered right across the globe. And anything that it says now is just justification for its allies. And this is why we have these lunatics, basically, fringe, and even in the centre of the Conservative Party. And we have the absolute abysmal cowards in the Labour Party, like Keir Starmer, who you might want to look into his donations. A lot of his donors, one of his biggest donors, has got big links with Israel, industrial links with Israel, business links. So I think that there's a two-way relationship going on. First of all, they need Israel there to attack the Arabs and keep the Arabs in check. Secondly, Israel puts a lot of money in. The Zionist lobby puts a lot of money in, not just in America, but in Britain, to control MPs. So I think that's got to be recognized. We have got to say that. We have a foreign country deliberately and systematically interfering with elections in this country by giving huge donations.
Understand. Can you tell me what is it that most thing that affected you since the beginning of war in Gaza?
Well, I just think that I think it's really because we've got people like Al Jazeera who are there on the grounds, and that's the only channel in Britain that I can find on sort of Freeview that's readily available.
Yeah.
The BBC and Sky don't really show what's going on the ground, but Al Jazeera are there, and I just find it absolutely, appalling. For the first couple of weeks, I just couldn't sleep properly at night, seeing what was going on. True. And I thought, why is this? And I spoke to other people, and then they just were in the same kind of boat. They were saying, "Well, we can't sleep either. We just the sheer scale of the horror." And I think it's probably because the advances in technology allow you to actually see what's going on. Even on social media, you will see what's really going on. And I don't see how anybody, no matter what their political stripe is, if they're a human being, can condone what's going on and not want a ceasefire. And for those people who were in Parliament and had the chance to vote for a ceasefire, you must have parents, you must have mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers in Parliament who are seeing these children massacred in their tens of thousands, seeing little children, innocent children, being blown to pieces. And being starved, and not even voting for a ceasefire. What sort of people are they? I can't. It's kind of, in a way, the whole situation baffles me. I can't see why anyone would want this to go on.
Yeah. There's no word to explain that. To be honest, there's nothing. There's no excuses. So for us just to look from far, and you'll be like shocked what's going on. Thank you very much, Steve, for being with us today. I'm a Palestinian myself, and really thank you for your support. Unfortunately, most of us feeling hopeless, not just hopeless, and we helpless. We can't do anything. So we're doing the little that we can do, which is just speak loud. So thank you for speaking loud. I know it has a negative impact.
Just one thing, don't feel hopeless, because what this has done, this has showed the entire world what the entity of the Zionist state of Israel is all about. This has shown everyone. There's absolutely no one out there now who can say that they didn't know. Everyone knows exactly what Israel's agenda are and what they're doing. So this has exposed them to the world. And most people in the world are fully behind Palestine. I would say 80% of the world are fully behind Palestine and the Palestinian struggle now, which wasn't the case before. So that is a very hopeful thing.
This is definitely something changed since the 7th of October, which is, as you said, how many people know the reality and standing with Palestine. But seeing you and many people like you speaking loud, even if they lose their job and they have a negative impact on their personal life, but they still standing with Palestine. We can see governments and other people who don't even speak a word of justice of Palestine because they are worried about their personal, they put their personal stuff more important than what's actually going on. So thank you very much in my name and in the name of Palestinians, and I hope you have a good day.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Sorry, Palestinians.
Thank you very much.